and welcome to another fabulous episode of Witch Hat Chats, sponsored by Evermoving We Rise and Moonlight Potions and Charms. I am your amazing goddess host, Miss Nikki, and we have our wonderful techno mage who is also a chaos magician, who is also a great god that debunks the debunkers. His name is Saul Ravencraft. How you doing, Saul?
When you pull up stuff that we talked about before the program, people have no idea what's going on. And I don't know if they want to know. Maybe they do. But I think it confuses
for another
things.
Episode of Witch Hat Chats.
That's right. That's right. We'll have the behind the scenes conversation at some point. I am doing well. It's still hot. As you see, I've decided to just say screw it, and I'm dressing down. I've got a kitty on my shirt, though, which is very important, always important. But I am not so worried about being formal today. I hope that's okay with you.
Well, it is, because it's hot up here too. So I just told Saul, hey, let's just both back off and kind of chill out.
That's right.
And because Mother Nature, she is pissed, and she's giving us a hot little hell wagon to be able to do. So
unfortunately, my margarita machine is not operable at the moment, so I'm having to do with lemonade, but. Now, I do have hopes. Perhaps I can be properly liquored up for a future episode of Witch Hat Chats.
Oh, that'll probably be a midnight showing.
Yeah. No, we should do a drunk edition someday.
Yeah, that'll be the New Year's resolution there.
Got to find the right guest. Speaking of drinking.
So it's been what, over 100 degrees down there where you're at?
Yeah, generally late afternoon. We have been hitting triple digits fairly consistently for the last while. Lake Travis's level is at 54% right now. Yeah, it's interesting. Although I tell you, if you manage yourself correctly, it's not horrible.
Right.
One of the key things to this is there was a time in the South when they knew how to build houses in a way that could handle the heat, right? And I'll give you a hint. It's not hermetically sealed boxes. It is high ceilings and ventilation and wraparound covered porches and dog runs and all those kinds of techniques that people used to know how to do. But now all of the houses are built the same. They're just supposed to be a generic box of air, and then you use machinery to manage all of that. And honestly, if you keep yourself hydrated, I've gotten where I've always got a drink going, always. I don't worry. Am I doing so many ounces per day or anything like that? There is always a cup with liquid next to me, always now, and I just drink when I feel like it, and when it empties, I fill it up again, and finding that shade, slowing your ass down a little bit makes a difference. Things that you don't have to do right now, you just kind of let some of that go. And although the other night it was 102 degrees and I was having to reload the Mojo Mobile for what I was doing the next day, which meant I had to pull out all the lights and everything from what I had done previously and repack it. And I thought, I'm going to wait until the sun goes down and it cools down a little bit. And the sun went down and the temperature dropped and it hit 96 degrees. And I realized, I think that's as good as it's going to get right now, unless I want to do this at 3 in the morning. And so it wasn't a big reprieve. But realizing that I could retime that. I mean, that's the trick. And you got nothing to prove, right? If it's too hot to go jog and that kind of thing, don't do it. Don't do it. Find something else. Find another way to be active. Go brisk walk the mall or something like that. Use the air conditioning. So it is survivable, but you do have to do it on purpose. And
that is from the perspective of a man who does not have hot flashes like I do.
Well, and that's a whole other aspect. My wife deals with that kind of thing as well, and it has not been as much of a curse during these hot days, or at least she just no longer shows any signs. She just endures it. I don't know. But yeah, no, that's an extra thing. That's one of those mysteries that I just can't fully imagine. I can intellectually understand it. I can have facts, but I can't really fully understand what that experience is. And I feel for you.
Well, you can kind of understand it by putting a heating pad on your back and just staying there.
Well, there's lots of metaphors. There's lots of metaphors, but there's nothing like what it's really like. Right?
Well,
it's like childbirth. All right, you can explain it in all kind of ways, but you know what it's like? It's like childbirth, and you got to do that to really understand it. Otherwise, shut the hell up.
Yeah, like me, we have the air conditioning on, but it never gets below 90 degrees here.
Yeah.
And I'm wetting towels, and of course I'm putting them on my head to make sure that I'm cool, and I've got ice packs on me, and I'm like, whew, I'd be so glad when it gets into October and it's not so hot.
It gets back down to the 80s.
Oh, yeah. For us to be the 70s. I can't stand the 80s either. All right.
Oh,
so
the 80s were cool.
It?
They made some strange clothing choices, but there's nothing wrong with the 80s. You're just a hater.
No, the 80s were like fine, but temperature, no.
Oh, okay.
Temperature
I'm
was
sorry.
hell no.
I was very sensitive to that.
Yeah, the 80s have some of the best horror movies.
Yeah.
So you want to know where our divination reading is for today?
I do indeed.
All right. So as people know, I drink a positive energy tea by Yogi Tea, and they have all these little cute little intentions on their little tea bags. So today's intention, which is our divination, is the purpose of life is to enjoy every moment. All right, Mr. Wise One, what do you think about that?
This is the first one we've had that I disagree with. I think it comes from that love and gaslight perspective that says that you're always supposed to be feeling the love and feeling the light and no negativity and all of that bullshit. And now you change a word and I'm with you. I think the purpose of life is to experience every moment and to be in what it is. But if you give this idea that you're supposed to enjoy every moment and things suck, and some things suck right now, right? They suck big donkey dongs right now. And we've got to allow ourselves to feel some of this anger and some of this frustration and some of this pain and some experiences that we go through, some of the trials we have to pass through. Not saying that it's something given from on high to make Nikki a better person, right? But sometimes when we're trying to get to our goal, we got to go through these little training programs. And we either find them or we get them anyway. And some of that stuff is not fun. Some of that stuff is not enjoyable, not in that moment. Now, what you get on the other side of it is the strength and skill that you gain on the other side of it is. But telling someone that they're supposed to enjoy everything really, I think, that's not honest spirituality. And so if we change that word to experience, I'm right with you. But otherwise, I'm going to have to disagree.
Well, I do agree you need to be mindful of things and that not every experience is enjoyable. If it was, then we wouldn't have things that will make us grow and change and obstacles to overcome. So I do agree with that. I think it should be experience everything and to be mindful of everything, because there's times that we just need to stop and smell the roses or smell the magic, as it is in our case.
Or smell the manure that's going to make the flowers grow.
Well, I'll let you do that in Cleveland County, because I can tell when we cross from Rutherford County into Cleveland County, especially early in the morning, you smell cow shit. That's the first thing you smell every time you cross that border.
That's natural.
Natural for you, but I'm sorry, I just don't want to smell cow shit.
It's organic, right?
Or if you're an organic person, awesome, but no. Okay, so, Mr. Saul, what is going on with you as far as your announcements go?
Well, I've got some private things going on where I'm doing consulting and events sort of under the radar. I can't tell everybody all the details about some of the stuff that I do because it's for things that people don't want to be made public. And that's part of doing those things. But it's included some private readings and some special events. Still looking towards some other things coming up. I'm at Curia Arcanum's House of Curiosities. The last Sunday that I did there, I made a donation day and actually did better than usual. So I'm seriously thinking about making Curia Arcanum a donation location where I can just let go of that and let people give what they need, because it was so nice to just focus on what needed to be done and not thinking about the clock and not thinking about anything else except being in the moment, right? So I'm there today, Sunday, and as many Sundays as I can be there. I'm also there on Thursdays, which is a little trickier for some people, but you should play hooky. I think you deserve it. Come out and be there, because I'll tell you, the owner, Frank, and I were talking about this the other day. Being inside that place feels very different than what's out there. And if you are just dealing with those discordant vibrations, I mean, if you sit down with me, that would be terrific. But if you're just there and look at the things and look at the artifacts he has and just allow yourself to be in that space, it will calm your vibration. And if you partake of what's available there, it will strengthen it. So definitely come out and be a part of the family at Curia Arcanum. I will be doing another edition of my Down the Rabbit Hole performance there. It's performance art that involves ideas like mind reading and spirit connection and really going down the rabbit hole with things. Very intimate setting. Doc's Drive-In, I'm still doing Ravencraft's Vault of Horror there. We've got it at the Drive-In. We've also got it in the air conditioning at Mr. Tramp's. So 2 screenings going on with that. And end of August, I will be doing a weekend of Down the Rabbit Hole performances there as well in their 1920s style underground speakeasy, which is just a wonderful place to be. So those are the public-facing things I can tell you about. A lot of private stuff going on, and of course, if you want to involve me in something that I can't tell anyone about, I would love to talk to you and make that happen. I do things everywhere from just kind of creating stories around events and experiences there to some of the deeper, weirder stuff, if that's what you want to go for. So it's always something going on.
So we're not going to mention your Chippendale side shows, huh?
Well, it's funny, Well, I mean, one, there's a website for everything, right? And believe it or not, there is someone that would pay for that. But I've got a lot of other things on the list first before I get there. But never say never.
All right.
So where are you dancing right now?
Oh, so with Moonlight Potions and Charms, we're still celebrating all of our excellent reviews for our products, service, and fast shipping. A lot of times when it comes to shipping, we actually ship on that day that you order. Most of the time we ship on that day or the next day, just depending on what time you order. If you order at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's going to be the next morning. It's not going to be right then and there. But most of the time we're very good at shipping very quickly. We've got our shadow work collection that I'm really excited about and getting that done. And we got our baths and candles and our bath bombs and our oils. And also we have our amazing dragon runes now. So we've got so much new things coming in. We also have our readings as well. We have our ancestor readings. So if you want to talk to your ancestors or you just want to know where to begin with your ancestors, go ahead and schedule an ancestor reading. We're very good at that, and we keep everything private. A lot of times I go ahead and tell you something when I do a reading, and people, would ask me the next day about this reading or something. And I don't remember what it is because I just to the point where that was your special message and that was just for you. So that's the way I am. We also have the Phoenix Crossroads Academy. And of course, our feature class is the Evermoving We Rise First Degree Fire, which will begin in October. So I'm really looking forward to that. As far as Evermoving We Rise, on the 13th of August, we are going to have a small ritual dedicated to the goddess Hecate. And we're going to have a little ritual dedicated to her, just to be able to honor her. And we're going to have some good old fun. And then on the 28th is our new moon ritual. And both of those are at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just go onto our Facebook page and check all that out. And if you want something private from me, or you want to be able to talk to me and Saul, just drop us a line and we can work something out for you. Wow. So now it's time for a little word from our sponsors. We'll come back and introduce our guest host. We are all magical beings. As a solitary magical practitioner, you can grow and develop yourself independently. Yet, the solitary path can be difficult and lonely with setbacks and self-doubts, and as you find your way without affirmations, reinforcements, or a safe space to practice, what do you do when things bump back? At Evermoving We Rise, our name is our lifestyle. We realize that everyone's spiritual journey is extremely personal, but more easily traveled with reinforcement. We teach you to understand and use the magical tools at your fingertips, while being upheld and developing personal responsibility for your own spirituality. We have a safe space to practice and learn as you master your craft. When situations bump back, you will have the entire community behind you, as we are a magical family who work to sustain each other. Discover the benefits of working within a society dedicated to helping you grow on your personal path. Start today. Visit us at our website, Linktree, or Facebook page and discover why we don't fit in the box.
At Witch Hat Chats, we promote magical knowledge, arts, and music from all cultures. We invite you to join us as our guest to share your practice, especially if your traditions are lesser known. Email us at witchhatchats@gmail.com. Tune in every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on our Facebook page.
And welcome back to Witch Hat Chats. I'm Saul Ravencraft. I am here with Miss Nikki Kirby. And it's time for us to bring someone else in, I would think.
Oh, yes. All right. So let's introduce our guest host, shall we? All right. So living in the middle of England in a small rural town, this guest host is a witch, an Obeah woman, and a voodoo saint who practices mixed traditions representing her ancestors and heritage. She has spoken at the Magical Women's Conference in London and has written several articles for Witch Way magazine. She is the author of Witch Life, a practical guide to making every day magical. We are proud to introduce Emma Kathryn. How are you doing, Emma?
Hello, I'm so happy to come and chat to you guys today. It's been great fun already, just listening to you both. So.
All right. So how's things in England? I hear that they're hot over there too.
Yeah, well, this week's not been too bad. It's cooled down, but like last week we had 40 degrees, which is unheard of for us. And none of us, like, our houses are built to stay warm, you know. So no one has aircon. It was unbearable. A bit cooler this week. Thank God.
I bet.
We're not used to it. We're not built for that kind of heat over here.
Oh, yeah. So could you explain to our audience what an Obeah is?
Yeah. So I call it a Jamaican witchcraft, but it's kind of a misnomer because it has its origins in Africa, but it found its way into the Caribbean. And kind of as all practices do, they change and merge as it mixes with new lands and new peoples. So my form of Obeah that I practice is Jamaican witchcraft. It's got lots of kind of very folky, very animism based, so yeah.
So could you explain what Jamaican witchcraft is? Because people don't really know what that is.
Yeah, and you know, it's one of those things where Obeah is kind of, whereas the other African spiritual traditions are kind of becoming more popular and a little bit more well known, you know, like Voodoo and Ifa, you know, almost everyone's heard of them. Obeah is kind of the opposite. And that's in part because it's kind of a secret tradition. It's taught, so you have to apprentice under an obeah, man or woman. And also, you know, it's still illegal in Jamaica and in other parts of the Caribbean. So, you know, it's kind of not as well known, but very much using plants, herbs, working with the spirits of the land. There's lots of parallels between other kind of magical traditions, which I always think there's like a shared beauty and also a uniqueness when you look at lots of different magical traditions, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah. You know, the thing about it is, it seems like all magical traditions, we all have certain things that we share, and that we all have in common. Even though people are like, no, mine's totally different. Like, really, you have herbs, right? You have oils, right? You have candles. Well, there you go. There's three things that are really common.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's part of why I love kind of all forms of magic, because there's a universal, you know, there's a universality about them, but there's also those little parts that make them unique and different, and it's all beautiful.
So what are some areas in the Jamaican practice that you're centered on that might be a little different from what people are used to in say, you know, Western Shakespearean witchcraft?
Well, mostly, I guess what differentiates obeah from other traditions are the spirits that you work with. So there are spirits that are just kind of unique to obeah. So that's kind of what makes it ultimately different in itself. There is a saying that you can use kind of any tool, and it's the power of the spirits working through that tool that kind of gives it the power, you know? And so I guess that's, in that sense, you can use any kind of tool, always respectfully, and, you know, all of that jazz. So, yeah, so I guess that is what really differentiates it from, say, witchcraft that is more folk magic based, you know, or European folk magic, I guess.
Sure. Well, and it's interesting that you sort of touched on the edge of that cultural appropriation thing, which has become very awkward in so many ways today. Because for a long time information was not readily available. People grabbed the scraps that they could. They kind of figured it out, and now some of those things are coming together in ways that make more sense and have more distinction, and it creates a little bit of confusion, I think, in some cases. You know, we always talk about witchcraft and spirit work and things like that to be something that you're pulled toward. You don't necessarily mean to be doing that, but it calls to you in some way. It connects with you in some way. And so I'm interested, obeah is just a part of what you work with, and so I'm interested in how you've helped to draw those lines and make those distinctions for yourself, and maybe suggestions you have for how someone remains respectful while having a broad metaphysical view, which I think is useful.
Yeah, it really is, you know. And I think, so I started with, so like I say, I live in the middle of England. And when I say I live in England, people always automatically think of London, but I live in Nottinghamshire. So it's about 20 miles outside of Nottingham City. You know, Robin Hood, Nottingham, that place. And so my mum is white English and my dad is black Jamaican. And so for most of us my age, you know, before the internet became a thing and before we all had computers in our homes, the local library was really all I had, and in there was your Wicca books, and there's nothing wrong with any of those at all. But for such a long time, even when I was kind of moving on into my witchcraft practice, which is more animist, kind of folk magic-y based, And for a long time, I guess I always felt that there was, I was leaving another part of myself behind. So that's really what led me to explore Voodoo and Obeah. And I was lucky enough to have someone to apprentice under in Obeah. And so, but then even after I discovered those and I went to that side, and I guess whichever side I was working on, I always felt that I was ignoring the other side. And, you know, both parts of my heritage kind of, they're all important to me. And it's one of those things when you think about where you come from and your parents and all of that stuff. And it's quite meaningful if you do ancestor work and all of that stuff. So for a long time, because like you say, the whole issue of cultural appropriation, it kind of, you know, it can be confusing, to say the least. And so for a long time, you're always trying to be respectful. But I found that I was always it felt like I was ignoring a side of myself. And so I just kind of felt, you know what, I'm going to practice all of them. And so for Voodoo, which is very different, that is in itself its own separate thing. You know, it's more organized than, say, my witchcraft practice or my Obeah practice, in that when you are initiated into Voodoo, into a house or temple, every house and temple have their own way of doing things, you know. So in that way, it's quite regimented. So each temple or house will probably worship 2, 3, 4, 5 different lower. I mean, they say that there are as many lower as you could ever imagine, you know. So that is kind of its own self-contained thing, you know. And I just think at some point you kind of have to ignore the naysayers, you know, because I get the naysayers. People just want to make sure people are being respectful and all of that. And I think if you go about anything respectfully, yeah, you just have to explore and take that time to experience those different parts and figure out what makes sense, I think, for you.
Some of the naysayers are not trying to make sure people are doing things respectfully. They are just troublemakers.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, for me, I actually work with Papa Legba and I work with Hecate. And when I was learning about Papa Legba, I would do a ritual just for him and then do my ritual, and then I would go and do a ritual for Hecate. And one day he just stopped me and he says, "You are ignoring your godmother." And I'm like, okay, because I thought he was talking about like another Loa is what I thought he was talking about, and he's like, no, you are ignoring your god, because I couldn't name him. Some of the ones that I occasionally, you know, work with, and he's like, no, you are ignoring your godmother, the one who brought you in here. You're ignoring her. And I said, are you talking about Hecate? And he says, yes. He says, you will include her in our rituals until we say otherwise, because she is your godmother and it is respect. And I'm like, okay, you know, because I admit I am not an expert when it comes to any type of, you know, Voodoo religion or African American religion. I'm still learning. And I told him that, and he says, I understand why you're doing it separately. He says, but no, he says, you do it together. That is not who you are. You do it together. So now I have to call him, and then I have to call her. You know, even though they're totally two different, you know, cultures, but he's like, no, you have to put them together for you. This is you. This is not everybody else. This is you. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I've been doing that ever since. You know.
Has there been any conflict?
No, they get along fine. She was very appreciative of that. I'm like, okay. Until they tell me different, okay.
It is interesting, isn't it? And I sometimes think that, you know, have you ever read Neil Gaiman's American Gods or seen the show? And although it's a novel, I love how he represents the gods all coming together. And in a way, it's kind of, it makes sense, doesn't it? You know, the mixations of people traveling across the globe, you know, willingly or not, and how different gods are transported to different places. It's just fascinating. It really is.
Well, and one of the things that Gaiman, who is a god, does in his thinking about gods moving around is there is this idea that a god, a sort of a copy of a god, will come with a people when they travel away from their homeland. But that copy also becomes separated from its roots. And so it is missing some of the vitality and some of the anchoring that happens in the homeland. And it's still a viable version of that god, but a little disconnected and a little weird. And I think that's a beautiful metaphor for what happens. I mean, exactly what we were talking about with this spirituality. I mean, if you were able to grow up in the middle of all that, then you would have a really strong grounding with it if you were open to it. But the further you are removed from that center, it's going to get harder to hear. It's gonna be harder to discern. That ripple is going to get a little weaker as it goes further and further out. And yet you can still connect with it. You can still do something with it. I guess you just have to not be arrogant. You have to recognize that you are at an outward ripple, and that you might not understand or experience something as powerfully as someone who is closer to the center, and be open to that. But don't give it up.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's not even so much that it's a loss of power, sometimes it's different, you know. So, for example, and I often kind of think of American gods when I'm thinking of, say, Obeah or Voodoo, because if you take Voodoo, for example, you can see how it has changed. And so you have the Petro and the Raider gods, and the Raider gods are kind of seen as cooler and the Petro are kind of hotter. And you can see that the Petro are a newer house as such. And that happened because, you know, the enslaved, the Raider gods are kind of seen as the original form, if you will. And the Raider gods are the newer versions, and they're more fiery and hotter because that's what was needed at the time in Haiti during, you know, the revolutions and uprisings. And so, and with Obeah, for example, so Jamaican Obeah will be very different from its original form in West Africa, extremely different because of the processes that happened. So, you know, the enslaved, and when we talk about the enslaved in, say, the Caribbean, and the plantations and you know, other places, it was brutal, so brutal, and so Obeah had to change as well to suit the people and the place. And so sometimes it's like you say, that you're on the outward ripple and it's a loss of power, or not as much power, but sometimes that power transforms and changes and becomes a different version of the original form, you know.
Well, and when Joseph Campbell has talked about various forms of spirituality and encountering those things, one of the things he always talks about when I remember a specific point in a program he did called The Power of Myth, which I recommend to everybody. It's just a wonderful way to get your brain reset a little bit on some of these ideas of encountering other people's spirituality. But his advice was that you should be knowledgeable, but then you pick one and you study it deeply, because they all have everything you need, but in different places. And if you just skim the surface and work with what's comfortable, then you're going to miss some things. But what you're describing makes me think of that, in that some of the ideas that were maybe buried very deeply in a spirituality, when things are comfortable and they're not being beaten and enslaved and they're just kind of living their life and have a lot to be grateful for, more obviously, right? We always have something to be grateful for, I suppose.
Yeah.
But then when it moved in this other location, it had to sort of turn so that the some of the deeper elements became more accessible. And so that's interesting to me. It had not occurred to me that way before, but I guess when something does migrate like that, it rotates into what is most needed in that culture, and hopefully evolves over time as those needs change.
Yeah.
And it is that time again, time to take a few moments to hear important information from our sponsors who make all this possible. I'm Saul Ravencraft, co-host of Witch Hat Chats. I understand just how confusing and chaotic it can be to open to a path of magic and manifestation. Everything seems to turn on its head. I want to be an ally as you find the way upon your path. My studio setup will let us do readings, coaching, and exploration virtually, just as though you were sitting across the table from me. One size does not fit all, and we will work together to craft the right approaches to build your practice, your confidence, and your power using the tools of divination, magical works, and spirit connections. It's never too late to embrace a new path and emerge empowered. Go to TexasMojoMan.com and select Contact to begin. There's a message now. Let's get started working on your very good fortune.
We are all magical beings. As a solitary magical practitioner, you can grow and develop yourself independently. Yet, the solitary path can be difficult and lonely, with setbacks and self-doubts, and as you find your way without affirmations, reinforcements, or a safe space to practice, what do you do when things bump back? At Evermoving We Rise, our name is our lifestyle. We realize that everyone's spiritual journey is extremely personal, but more easily traveled with reinforcement. We teach you to understand and use the magical tools at your fingertips, while being upheld and developing personal responsibility for your own spirituality. We have a safe space to practice and learn as you master your craft. When situations bump back, you will have the entire community behind you, as we are a magical family who work to sustain each other. Discover the benefits of working within a society dedicated to helping you grow on your personal path. Start today. Visit us at our website, Linktree, or Facebook page and discover why we don't fit in the box. Have you heard? People are raving about Moonlight potions and charms with 5-star reviews. 5 stars for excellent products, amazing services, and fast shipping. We are an Etsy star seller. Listen to some of our reviews. Author and owner of Wicca Witch Studios, Dorothy Morrison said, "I'm in love. The Marie Laveau Altar on the Go is absolutely amazing and jam-packed with everything one could possibly need, no matter what sort of magic they're planning. Kudos on a great product." Jess said, "Absolutely love the Papa Legba prayer candle. I've been hunting for a good Papa Legba candle forever with zero success, and I adore this one." High Priestess said, adorable wooden coffins. Can't wait to use them. And Angelica said about our ancestor oil, exceeding my expectations. Packaged with love and smells amazing. Definitely recommending and buying again. Make sure to check out our bubbling cauldron bath bombs, available in Luck of the Irish, Lavender, and Dragon's Blood. Our magical milk baths are also available in Papa Legba Purification, White Flowers, Lucky Love, and Van Van. All are homemade and spelled with love, care, and intention. Our Happily Ever After candle line is designed with you in mind. There is so much more in our Wicked store to help you to embrace the power of your own magic. So come on in to Moonlight Potions and Charms at www.moonlightpotionscharms.com and discover the wicked things that ignite the magical passion in you. And welcome back to Witch Hat Chats as Sal and I are chatting with Emma Kathryn. There she is.
Hello.
So, Emma, you wrote a book, and I don't have the title some damn well around here.
I do. It's Witch Life, a practical guide to making everyday magical. I did.
Yeah, so let people know, what is that actually about?
I guess, in essence, it's a collection of lots of different things designed to get people actually doing the thing, you know. Talk a lot about, generally when I talk about, I don't know, witchcraft and stuff, I tend to talk about having a practical practice. And sometimes people can get, I think sometimes people misunderstand and sometimes they can get a bit defensive, but a practical practice can be anything, you know, depending on what it is that you actually do. Because I think, and it was true of myself when I was, you know, first starting out, and for a long time actually, you get so bogged down with the theory. Now, theory is good. I'm like a nerd, so I love reading lots of theory on lots of different things that interest me. But at some point, I think you have to put the theory books down and do the thing, because then that's how you assimilate your experiences. And that's kind of, so I really wanted to write something that was aimed at the more practical side, so people can pick and choose what to do at any given time. They can adapt it to make it more suitable for where they are in the world, where they live, what they have. So that was my main aim, to get people actually doing the thing that they want to do.
Yeah, that's what I call field magic, you know, actually getting into it and doing it, you know, because a lot of people are asking me all the time, Nikki, how do you do magic every day? Because I don't know how to do that every day. Mm-hmm. And when people think about magic, they think about, I got to put on the fancy robes now, and I got to light all the herbs, and I got to do the Hollywood type of thing.
Yeah. Gotta have the magic shoes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's not really necessary.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I do like all the pomp and jazz, but 90% of the time it's on the fly as you need it, when you need it, you know?
Right. You know, it's just like I said, don't you cook? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell my mom, I can't cook today, because if I cook, I'm either like depressed or I'm down. I'm like, it's going to still be good, but it's going to get you depressed.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of looking at it as well, because the things that we do, you know, we're putting so much of ourselves into them when we're doing it. And cooking is like one of the easiest ways to make everyday magical, like in the book. So I cover like all of the usual things like the Sabbats, but for every Sabbat there's a recipe, you know, because cooking is, you know, at the very basic, even on the mundane level, you know, you're taking those those foods and transforming them into something else, and you're giving them to yourself as nourishment and to the people you love. And yeah, that's magic in itself, you know, even if you might not have all of the theory or you don't know quite where you fit in the grand scheme of things, you know, you can still have that daily magic. And I think as you kind of do all of those little things over time, you like I say, you kind of assimilate them and they become part of your practice. And sometimes I think it's only when you stop and you look back after months, years, whatever, that you think, actually, this is a thing all of itself, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes we just get a bit bogged down in the day-to-day to really have that perspective.
Well, I posted something today, and obviously everyone should buy Emma's book right now. But I did find myself looking at some kind of a course or lecture or something like that someone was offering, and catching myself in that desire to get that one thing that was going to have that one secret that I hadn't been able to figure out, that was going to change everything. I admire this person. I know they know stuff that I don't know. So if I buy that one more thing, it will give me that secret. And as I looked through the material he was offering, there was nothing there that was completely new to me, even though I had not seen the way he teaches that.
Yeah.
And yet, I need to not spend my time, like you were saying, dealing with the theory, just sitting in my chair, thinking my way through everything. The spark only comes when you rub the flint on the steel. And you have to get active with it. And I think that our culture, especially as everything's moved into that technology aspect there, you know, we do get kind of complacent, and we do want to know that what we're going to do is going to work, and then we're going to do it right, and we're not going to screw it up, and maybe if I just go through one more class before I actually try something. And myself, I mean, I got involved in all this to prove it wasn't true and went way down the rabbit hole. And so it has been like Homer Simpson bouncing down the hillside there. Don't, the whole way. And you got to do stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to be bold enough to put yourself into it.
Yeah, and I think you can do stuff before you've got the theory nailed down or alongside it. So in my day job, I work in a school. So my school it's a very small school, but it's for children with autism. So it's an autism-specific special school. And, you know, a lot of the stuff I teach the kids, so we teach the theory, but alongside teaching the theory, you're also doing the practical, you know, and I think because that's how you kind of make sense of the theory. You know, it's okay sitting in the classroom and listening to someone tell you, but until you begin to experience it, then you think, oh, actually, this is what they meant. Now I understand. And, you know, so, yeah, that's kind of, I think, the doing is just as important as the theory. In equal measure, well, no, that's a lie. I guess the practical is more important than the theory. And, you know, that kind of hurts my heart a little bit to say because I am a nerd and I like all of the theory stuff. But I think while you're just sitting and listening and not doing, it's just somebody else's theory, it's somebody else's practice, or it's somebody else's magic. And the doing it is where it kind of then starts to become your own. You can kind of see what works for you and all of that kind of stuff.
So you're hell on wheels with witchy trivia nights. We need a witchy Jeopardy.
Oh, yeah. I
would watch that show.
my wife works with preschoolers that are on the spectrum. And one of the things that has been interesting to observe, she doesn't talk a whole lot about it. It's a highly focused, very stressful thing to do that yet has a lot of love in it. So totally you understand it in a way that I can't. But you know, while it does create a lot of turmoil for her that she has to recover from daily, she's not necessarily looking to do something else because of the impact and what happens. But something that I have begun to understand is that all the technique in the world is great when you're dealing with one of these children, but each one of them, every single one of them, is its own combination of these factors. So you can't necessarily take what you did with this person and just slide it over here and it's going to work. Everything is custom. And you know, that's hard to wrap my head around.
Yeah, and you know, it's all based on building relationships with the individual, you know, because you're absolutely right. That all of the, you know, we have all of the training days where you learn, you know, you get taught all of these different theories and all of these different ways of dealing with all of these different behaviors and dysregulations and all of that kind of stuff. But actually, it's the individual knowledge and relationship you have with that child. It's the trust that you build with that child. And interestingly enough, I learn a lot about my witchcraft and my magical and spiritual practices from actually working with these children, because it actually teaches you a lot about yourself as well when you're dealing with the good times and the bad, you know?
Well, you don't experience joy every moment?
No, I have experiences every moment. I think I'm with you on that one.
That's
I experience every moment. Some are not so joyful as others.
Well, and it is interesting because as we've been talking, and I think just in the whole history of doing this with Nikki, there is this understanding that there is no one way for everybody, that everybody's spiritual path is their own. And some people may walk beside you or in front of you or behind you, but not the whole way.
Yeah.
And we've got to be open to individualizing our experience and yet not making that the weird person that lives in the cave.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it, I think.
You people make my ass twitch. Yeah.
So you were telling us that when you was writing your book, that a lot of it had to do with you living in a rural area and everything. So one of the questions that people want to know is, how can you apply it to someplace like in the city?
Yeah, you know, and so I talk a lot about animism, about collecting items from your local area and using those in your craft and all of that kind of stuff. And I think sometimes we get so used to thinking there's nothing here, there's nothing here, there's nothing here. So, for example, I love the little town I live in. It's beautiful architecture, so much history. And yet, the same, one of my friends will say, oh, God, I hate this town. It's rubbish. There's nothing in it. It's so boring. There's all these people there. So, you know, I think sometimes you have to look at where you live with new eyes. You have to go out. You have to take the time to. And I think one of the good things you can do, I think one of the easiest things you can do, regardless of where you live, is just go out into the area where you live at different times of the day and at different times of the year. You know, so for example, the woods is like my home. I would live in the woods. I would be that weird woman in the woods. Not necessarily a cave, but the woods, yes. And, you know, that would be my joy. But although I live in a rural area, it's not the woods. And so you know, the woods in the daytime is very different to the woods at the nighttime. So you know, you have to kind of become familiar with the place where you live and learn its secrets. And I think when you take that interest, I don't know whether it's the genius loci or what, I just feel, well, I would say it is personally, but you know, as you begin to build that relationship, I think the land reveals new secrets. You see things with new eyes. You perhaps realize that, you know, you don't need that romantic image of the wild wood if you've got a little tree growing at the end of your street, you know. So I think sometimes it's I think sometimes it's just about learning to look at where you are with new eyes. I'm sorry there, my camera just fell.
That's all right. I wanted to pause this just a moment because there's a word that has been going back and forth that I don't think we've really talked about very much, and that is the word animus. Can you take us give us a moment to help us understand your perspective on what animus is and why we care?
Yes. So for me, I see the whole of the natural world as being alive and imbued with spirit. You know, and I think everyone will have slightly different definitions of what animism is. I know some people who apply it to everything, so they see everything in the world, regardless if it's man-made or, you know, as having soul and spirit. You know, so, but generally it's about believing that everything is alive, everything is connected to one another. And I think when you kind of see things in that way, it just opens up new opportunities to how you can work with the spirits of that place.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I see everything as having a spirit within it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way I am. To me, there's no such thing as the mundane.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is magical.
Yeah.
We're all magical creatures. Everything we do is magical. And people are like, well, I got to separate the mundane. I'm like, are we on Charmed? Yeah. Really? I mean, come on. When you try to separate the magical out of things, you are increasing your shadow. You're basically suppressing a portion of yourself, and you need to stop that.
Yeah, and I think people who kind of separate the mundane from the magical, because for me, you know, everything, it just merges together. Where does one thing end and another begin? Mm-hmm. You know, and it's, and I think sometimes when we separate the mundane from the magical, I think that can kind of, I don't know, it puts a barrier, I think, and I think that stops every day, kind of, as cliche as it sounds, being magical. It stops you from practicing something every day because you get into your mindset that this is my mundane life and this is my magical life. And they just become two separate things rather than just your magical life, you know.
Right. You know, and it really stops you from being a whole person as far as I'm concerned. I
agree.
It's just like there's that side that we show people, and then there's that side that we only have behind the doors. Yeah. No. I'm the type of person, the hell with that. You know, if you don't like it, screw you.
Best way to be.
All right, we need to have a word from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back with the Witch's Cabinet. Have you heard? People are raving about Moonlight Potions and Charms with 5-star reviews. 5 stars for excellent products, amazing services, and fast shipping. We are an Etsy star seller. Listen to some of our reviews. Author and owner of Wicked Witch Studios, Dorothy Morrison said, I'm in love. The Marie Laveau altar on the go is absolutely amazing and jam-packed with everything one could possibly need, no matter what sort of magic they're planning. Kudos on a great product. Jess said, absolutely love the Papa Legba prayer candle. I've been hunting for a good Papa Legba candle forever with zero success, and I adore this one. High Priestess said, adorable wooden coffins. Can't wait to use them. And Angelica said about our ancestor oil, exceeding my expectations. Packaged with love and smells amazing. Definitely recommending and buying again. Make sure to check out our Bubbling Cauldron bath bombs, available in Luck of the Irish, Lavender, and Dragon's Blood. Our magical milk baths are also available in Papa Legba Purification, White Flowers, Lucky Love, and Bam Bam. All are homemade and spelled with love, care, and intention. Our Happily Ever After candle line is designed with you in mind. There is so much more in our Wicked store to help you to embrace the power of your own magic. So come on in to Moonlight Potions and Charms at www.moonlightpotionscharms.com and discover the wicked things that ignite the magical passion in you. Are you at a crossroads? Not sure which direction to go? Or do you feel powerless? Or is there another question that needs answering? At Moonlight Potions and Charms, our many services assist our clients to emerge their authentic selves and embrace the power and magic that lies within them. Many of our readings provide the clarity one needs to pursue their life's destiny. Our soulful readings assist one to discover what is required to be in alignment with one's soul journey. Our tarot readings provide clarity and coaching for those who are at a crossroads in life. Our animal medicine readings show what our animal brothers and sisters can teach you about yourself and your life. Unsure where to start your shadow work? Book a shadow reading. There is so much more in our Wicked store, so visit us at www.moonlightpotionscharms.com and embrace the power of your own magic.
And welcome back to Witch Hat Chats. It's time for the Witch's Cabinet, and we've been talking about animism and all kinds of practical, spiritual, magical things that you can do to bring magic into your everyday life. And Emma, you said that you have something to share with us that is something that people can do pretty easily without having a whole lot of in-depth information about it, and give them a taste of what's possible. Tell us more about what you have in mind.
Okay, so plant work is by far my favourite thing to do, whether it's for magical purposes or just growing your own food or whatever. It's perfect. So in the UK, and I guess in other places as well if it grows where you do, mugwort and wormwood, the Artemisia herbs, are kind of perfect for harvesting now. And so this is a little ointment that you can make. Now, of course, you should always check with your GP before you use herbal products. If you are, medical advice can never just be like poo-pooed off. I think it's always important that you check with your GP. Even if you're on medication, just to make sure there's no contraindications. But this is an ointment that is really safe to use if you get all of the advice you need. And it's good you can use it actually as a little bit of a flying ointment, because these are slightly psychoactive. People are probably familiar with wormwood in that it's used to flavour absinthe. And so they're really useful plants to use, and they have many medicinal properties. But what I really like about the ointment is that it's super safe to use on the skin, compared to, say, ingesting something. And it can be used, say, if you work out a lot and you've got muscle aches and pains, or, you know, skeletal pain. It's something that you can make relatively easily with very little specialized equipment. And you can use whatever you have to hand. So if you have cooking oil in your cupboard, you can use that. If you use solid fat, you can use that. Coconut oil, there's lots of different ways. So you basically steep the herbs in oil, and you can either do the slow method or the fast method. So the slow method is, you know, you fill the jar with your herbal matter about 3/4 full, and then you top up with whatever oil you're using. And then you leave it somewhere warm for, say, at least 2 weeks, but longer if you can. And then you strain it out. And you can either use it as a runny oil, or you can kind of melt some beeswax into there until you get the consistency that you like. Because some people don't like the really oily, on the skin greasiness. Or you can do the bain-marie method. So you get a pan of water, you put a bowl so it sits on top of the water, and then you put the oil and the herbs in the bowl. And it just fastens the process of, it speeds it up of the infusion. And again, you can, once you've strained it out, you can add beeswax. I quite like using coconut oil because then I don't have to add anything to it, because I have quite dry skin anyway, so it's quite nice on my skin. And it goes solid once it's there. And it's something that is practical. And, you know, it's one of those things where you have to experiment. So if it goes wrong the first time, that's fine. You know, the learning is the fun part, I think.
Love it. Love it.
Awesome. Yeah, because I know, you know, especially with me, I go through a lot of pain when it comes to my back and my knees. And we just discussed about the fact about migraines. Wonderful little things. They're not headaches. You know, that's the thing about it.
They are not headaches.
People say, "Oh, you just got a little headache." No. A migraine should not be included in the category of headaches. It should be included in the category of catastrophe, okay? Because, I mean, I've had migraines since I was 9 years old. And I've been to the point where I've had one half of my body to go completely numb, to where they dragged me into the hospital over these things because I can't walk, I can't see, hearing, oh my God, no, I don't want to do anything. I want to be put in a dark room. And at that point, I just want somebody to mash my head in and so I can just go away. You know, that's just basically what I want. You know, because you get to that point, I mean, you're sick. You don't want anything to happen to you and everything like that. And so I have tried my best to come up with some, you know, other types of natural type of helps, you know, that's going to be able to help it. I'm not going to say cures because there's no such thing as a cure yet. For migraine, there's not this magical little pill or herb that you can take and suddenly it's gone, because everybody's migraines are different as well. So I try to do more of the natural stuff because I just don't like to. I'm not a pill popper. I just don't like to throw, you know, pills and everything like that. And I know when I go to a new doctor, I hate going to new doctors because that's the first thing I give them is this lecture. I'm not a pill popper, but I do have a high pain tolerance, really, really high pain tolerance. So there's only certain things that will help me as far as pain goes, but half the time I don't even take them. You know, they say take it like 3 times a day. You're lucky if I take it once.
Yeah, and I think, you know, with herbal remedies as well, you're right. You know, they don't replace the treatment or whatever you get, and there is no cure for a lot of the things that we use herbal remedies for. Sometimes the magic of the herbal remedy is that it helps to ease the symptom you know. So, for example, with the Artemisia ointment, I have a friend and she has arthritis in her knees. And in the winter, you know, in the summer months, it's bearable. It's painful but bearable. But in the winter, when it's cold and damp, and you know, and it flares up, and she's like you, she already has medication for it that she's already taken, but she doesn't want to increase the dosage, or she doesn't want, because it knocks her for six. You know, it really does affect her. So in the winter, she'll ask, and she'll just put it on before bed just to kind of help ease the pain. So I think whenever you're working with these herbal remedies, it's always important to understand what they're working on and how they're working and how they affect your body. Yeah, because, you know, a lot of the time they ease the symptoms of whatever it is you're going through rather than cure it, you know.
Right, and you need to be kind of easy when you first start this, because you don't know how it's going to really react on you. It's just like, you know, with my oils, I tell everybody, I tell them, put a little bit on your hand, you know, just to see if it's going to do any, you know, action to it. And it's got to be on the back of the hand.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
And of course, it's always worth mentioning with wormwood, and particularly with mugwort, that if you're kind of pregnant or breastfeeding, I think it's common sense to just kind of stay away from things you're perhaps unsure about. If you are have a condition and you're not sure, because I think there's nothing worse than when you're trying something, herbal medicines, and you're making something and you use it, and you know, you're almost waiting for that reaction. So that when you feel something, you're like, oh my God, oh no, and, you know, so these herbs are relatively safe to use. But again, you know, if you're pregnant or have major health concerns, it's always, you know, should always err on the side of caution.
Yep, and that goes to doing your research too. It's just like,
absolutely,
you know, you don't sit here and take an herb and like, oh, what the hell? I'm just going to grab this herb and I'm going to throw it in my mouth. No, you dumbass. You sit here and you research it, because number one, you need to know what that herb does. Mm-hmm. Number two, you need to know if, for example, there's some herbs you may be allergic to.
Yeah.
You need to know you might be allergic to this herb, or more yet, it might kill you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you don't just pop it in your mouth. Oh, dumbass.
Yeah, and of course on that end, identification is key. And I always say to people, because I forage for mine because they grow so abundantly locally, but I say to people, if you are unsure, or there's even just a little tiny doubt, just don't. Just don't. Because there are some plants, for example, elderflower is one, but there are several types of flower and plants that look like elderflower when it's flowering, you know. So, for example, in the UK, you've got giant hogsweed, which if you brush against that and you get the sap on your skin, it reacts with the sunlight and you get like really bad burns, like chemical burns, and you have to go to hospital. Hemlock is another one that looks similar to elderflower, but is highly, highly toxic and, you know, can kill you, you know. So identification is key.
Yep, that is. And that's just not by taking it or putting it on your skin. It's also with smoking. You know, if you're going to have it as incense or something, you need to understand what that's like, because and if you guys do incense, please open up a damn window.
Yes. You know, I once had a friend, they made incense out of chili peppers, but then decided they wanted to take a big sniff of it. You can guess what happened.
Well, I have people that's come up to me and says, well, I've cleansed my house, but there's still these little irritants, you know, that come around and everything. And I'm like, did you open up a window? Well, why would I do that? You need to let it out, okay? You're basically beating the shit out of this damn thing. And if it can't get it completely, it's going to run the hell out. Let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like with certain herbs, you need to have gloves on too, especially like with peppers. If you're having peppers and you get the juice on you and everything, don't go near your eyes. Oh my God, you're gonna burn the hell out of your eyes.
Even when you wash your hands, if you've like chopped chili peppers and then you go and wash your hands, it doesn't get it all off, you know.
Right.
Last crawfish place I went to had signs about the urinals reminding you to wash your hands first. Sage advice. Sage advice.
Yep, and I mean that just goes from research and from personal experience too.
Yeah.
I remember my ex-husband kept claiming that none of my foods were hot enough. Well, I can't take a lot of heat or chili or anything like that. So I decided I was going to get him back. And he had ground these really, really hot peppers. I forgot what they were. But I took about 3 of them, chopped them up, and put them in his spaghetti. And he turns red right from his chin all the way up, you know. And I said, well, is that hot enough for you? Because, you know, with me, I just put it in his bowl. I didn't put it in mine or in the entire thing. I just did it in his bowl. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's really hot. And the thing with peppers is you can't drink water because it makes it worse. You have to eat like bread or drink milk. You know, you got to do something like that because if you drink water, all it's going to do is make it worse. And a lot of people, what do they go for? They go for the water. I'm like, you're just making it worse.
All right, I'm going to be very nerdy here. The correct response to hot peppers is a dairy product. Milk, sour cream, yogurt, because there is a molecule in the milk product that wraps itself around the molecule in the pepper and actually creates a buffer for it. Dairy is scientifically designed to counteract hot peppers. So little milk, sour cream is something I like to have standing by if I think I'm going to do something pretty overwhelming. I've got a pretty high pepper tolerance myself, but if I think it is going to get intense or I discover that it's intense, sour cream is a great little thing to have on the side, and you just take a little dab of that and it cools your palate back down. And it is the most effective thing to use against hot peppers. So that is my gift to you. It's not a witchy thing, it's a science thing.
So what about if you're lactose intolerant? What do you do then?
Well, you may be screwed. You may be screwed. And I don't know what happens when you get into things like sour cream and some of that, because sometimes that gets a little rearranged, but that would be something to experiment with. The information did not cover that in detail. You may just have to die. Sorry, survival of the fittest, right?
Right.
You may just be resigned to plain toast with a little butter. No flavor in your life.
Sometimes.
The Vindaloo is denied to you.
All right. So, Miss Emma, where can our people find you?
So there's my website, Emma Kathryn Wild Witchcraft, Twitter, Facebook, Emma Kathryn Wild Witchcraft, Instagram, same, Emma Kathryn Wild Witch.
All right. Well, thank you for being on our show today. It was very much fun.
I had a great time.
All right. So that's all for our show today. So join us next week And Saul and I will be chatting with Stephanie Woodfield. We want to thank our first responders, essential workers, and medical workers for all of your passion, dedication, and what you're doing in this fight to win in this pandemic. We truly appreciate you. And trust me, we've got now, what is it, monkey pox that's coming out now? Like, Jesus.
Yeah,
like,
I know, right?
You know, like, what the hell? Ladies, remember that our rights are the ones that no one gives away or takes away from us because we are not property. And make sure that you go out and you vote so we can be able to make sure that our rights are the same as men. Actually, I think they ought to be better, but that's just me. Anyway, wear a mask, get your vaccinations and your boosters. Maintain your distance from each other and keep your fuzzy babies, your family, and yourself safe. And have an absolute magical week.
I know some people who like to chat. I think they're witches, how about that? And every Sunday at 12 o'clock. And if you're hurting, they're willing to talk. Nikki Kirby with that black stone. I agree, Evermoving We Rise. Life and soul will the beautiful mind. I give you blessings under moonlight. I know some people who like to chat. I think they're witches, how about that? And every Sunday at 12 o'clock. And if you're hurting, they're willing to talk.